Should you retire early? This is a conversation we have with many of the clients we work with because they found themselves in a position where they've saved enough money and they can retire early if they want to. Now, we're going to talk through some of the pros and cons of this, not only financially, but also emotionally, and also the things to be aware of based on the clients that we've worked with and what we've seen. And hopefully this video can either give you encouragement to retire now, or maybe it'll give you encouragement that you're making the right decision by continuing to work. So whatever that may be for you, we hope that this can help you make that educated and informed decision so that you can enjoy and do what you wish with your life savings.
Joe knows taxes.
Joe knows the market.
Joe knows Social Security.
Joe knows income planning.
Joe knows pickleball? No.
This is Joe Knows Retirement.
So as you know, with many of the videos we do here, we talk to the Midwestern Millionaire, the Middle Class Millionaire. You can read our description of the YouTube video to get an understanding of who we talk to in these videos. But it's people who have been hardworking, they've been frugal, and they've been diligent savers. And although they may not live in the Midwest, they have Midwestern values, and those Midwestern values are what I just explained there. And they really want to maximize and take advantage of their current situation. And so often this leads to the opportunity for them to retire early. But often, again, what we see is that some of these people value hard work. They may enjoy working, and they may want to continue working onwards through retirement, even in retirement. And if that's the case, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's where your purpose comes from in retirement, then you should do what you want to do and what you enjoy doing. But on the other side of it, which we're mostly going to talk about today, is giving permission to retire early if you have enough saved and why that can be beneficial. So again, this isn't a video to recommend you what to do. This is a video to give you perspective and allow you to make that decision of what you feel is best. So one thing to think about if you are thinking about retiring early, and we get this often with that crowd of like 55 to 59 that looking to retire early, and that's, a little more extreme of retiring early. A lot of people 60 to 65 can be considered retiring early as well, just depending on your situation. So if you are retiring before 59 and a half though, as you know, you can't take withdrawals from retirement accounts, IRAs as an example, without paying a penalty. You have to pay a 10% penalty. The good news is that through your employer retirement account, there's typically something called the Rule of 55, where you can take withdrawals if you are retired from your 401k without having to pay that penalty. And so that can be a huge advantage for those people to have access and liquidity to enjoy that retirement, maybe before Social Security starts or before maybe a pension starts, so that they can start to live and enjoy what they saved. Because if you don't have a non-retirement account saved, you may not be able to tap into somewhere where you can take out money without that penalty. And so this can be very useful. Just make sure you're aware that if you are working with a financial advisor, obviously financial advisors get compensated on having your money under their management, which makes sense. I'm not here to talk bad about that, but just be aware that they may want to say, hey, you have to move your entire 401k for us to work with you. And that could limit you from having that ability to use the Rule 55, because once it's in an IRA, Rule 55 only applies to employer plan. It doesn't apply to an IRA. So what we do with our clients in that scenario is we'll move over a portion of their assets, the assets that they don't plan to use before 59 and a half. Any assets we do plan to use before 59 and a half, we leave it there. And then we make sure it's invested appropriately. So that's there for them to enjoy and utilize. But also the other thing to keep in mind is that people in this crowd that's 55 to 59 and a half, yes, they're going to be able to take out income from their investments, typically at low tax brackets, because if they don't have income and they don't have Social Security, they're going to be able to use up that standard deduction, which is about $30,000 for a married filing jointly crowd, which that means $30,000 you take out is tax-free. That's a pretty good deal. And then all the way up to the 10% and 12% bracket typically, that's going to be fair game of about $120,000 of total income that they can take out and pay really reasonable rates on. And so typically we always want to make sure we're utilizing at least that, either by taking out income to live on or by doing something called a Roth Conversions, which is something we'll go into an in-depth conversation about now. So those are two things that you can do there. Now, with a Roth conversion, as we know, it's where you move money from an IRA to a Roth. I talk about this often. There's other videos on this channel. You can learn more about that. But in that scenario, we do have to have the money to pay the taxes if we want to do that. And if we do that, if we withhold it from an IRA, again, we got to pay the penalty if we're under 59 and a half. Although if we are have a 401k there, we can pay the taxes out of that. And so something we'll do with clients is, let's say we want to convert $100,000 from the IRA to the Roth. We'll just do the $100,000 conversion. We won't worry about taxes on that conversion. And then we'll simply pay the government through the 401k. And so we'll do a withdrawal of $100,000, or we'll do a withdrawal, let's call it $20,000. Let's say it was I'm giving you different numbers. Let's say it was a 10% tax rate, right, as I went through earlier. Well, $10,000 has to get sent to the government for taxes. So we'll just do a $10,000 withdrawal from our 401k, and we'll withhold 100% taxes, which all goes to the government, meaning you don't have to worry about that tax burden. You don't have to worry about that 10% burden. You took care of it, and we got all of the money over to the Roth that we were wanting to. So those are some of the considerations there. And as I mentioned, Roth conversions up to 12%. Yeah, we definitely want to look at that, but does it make sense to go to 22 or 24%? For a lot of those who are really diligent savers, if you have $1 million or more, that can really start to make sense to explore going up further depending on your age, if that's going to make sense for you. So just run an analysis there and see. But again, if you're 55 to 59 and a half, you only have $1 million, well, maybe you don't need to be as aggressive, because over the next 5-10 years, you can take out $100,000 a year and stay in those relatively low tax bracket and move it over to Roth and do so very efficiently. So that's what all of that comes into play. And maybe you look to defer Social Security so you have more room to do that, because when you start to take Social Security, that raises up your income, and now you're not going to be able to do as much Roth conversions efficiently, but also now you're going to force the Social Security you take to be tax-free. Versus if you're able to do all these withdrawals now and you're able to Roth convert now, well, maybe if you get to 65, 67, 70, or whenever you want to take Social Security, but let's just say you defer all the way to 70, maybe by that point you take Social Security and all your withdrawals for income come from Roth now, well, that Social Security is going to be completely tax-free. So let's say you get $50,000 a year from Social Security. That could be all in your pocket, and you don't have to pay taxes to the government on that, where typically you have to pay up to 85% of that has to be counted as income, and then you have to pay tax bracket income rates on that. And so that could force you to have less Social Security. But in this case that we're talking about with this type of planning, you could leave yourself in a situation where I call legally divorcing the IRS for life, where you don't have to worry about Social Security tax, you don't have to worry about tax on the Roth IRA or distributions you take, and then we still want to make sure we have enough in our IRAs to take withdrawals from in the future because of what's called the standard deduction. Up to $30,000 of withdrawals every year is tax-free. And so we want to make sure that we take enough from our IRA while also worrying about what's called the provisional income that counts how much of Social Security is taxable or not, so that those two numbers stay within that standard deduction so we don't have to overpay in taxes over our lifetime. I mean, how would it feel not to have to pay federal taxes at some point in retirement because you did the smart tax planning now to get there? Well, I'll tell you what, it's very reasonable for a lot of our clients we work with, especially that middle class millionaires we've been talking about, who have maybe $1 to $2 million saved up, or maybe even $250 to $1 million. It's very reasonable for that crowd. I mean, for that crowd, it's almost a non-negotiable for them. That's assuming they don't have pensions, right? If you have pensions, you may never be able to have Social Security be tax-free or be able to not pay any taxes. Your name of the game is to reduce your taxes and pay the lowest amount, not maybe nothing. So unfortunately, but fortunate, because a pension's great. But for those who don't have a pension, have anywhere from that $250 to $2 million range, even higher if you're young enough and you plan the right way, then you could find yourself in that position. And we see that very often with people we work with. So just something to be aware of and make sure is front of mind in your planning as you progress. And the other reason why Roth conversions can really make sense for this crowd is because you don't have to worry about Medicare premiums. And we don't have to worry about Medicare premiums until age 63. So once we're age 63, then it starts to calculate what our 65 premium will be. So when you're 65, when you go to apply for Part B Medicare, which most people do, you're going to have to pay right now about $170 a month. Well, that's going to dictate based on your income of how much you pay. So if you're in the lowest tier, you'll pay $170. But if you go back 2 years and you had a really high income year, you did a huge Roth conversion, now you're going to have to pay more at age 65, and that could be significantly more. It can be thousands of dollars more each year. Every year you're above that, and you get the same Medicare coverage. You don't get better. You pay more, but you don't get better. You get the same as everyone else. So it's something that we really want to make sure we're aware of. Well, if you're doing these Roth conversions between 62 and 55 because you retired early and you have all this room, you can do as much as you want without having those issues. And so those are things that we want to look into. So again, more reasons why tax planning can make sense at this point. So I will say, though, to make sure we're taking a step back, having income is great. I mean, from a financial planning standpoint, if we can take income from our work versus income from our investments, it's going to lead to a better chance of success. So obviously we all know that. Now, that doesn't factor in the fact that, Joe, I don't want to work, right? And so if you don't want to work, this type of planning can still make sense. So I'm not trying to say you need to retire now so you can do all this. Well, you are going to be withdrawing versus accumulating, so you need to be aware of that. But it can make sense. So I want to say I'm not trying to justify, but I'm just trying to give you reasons that if you are dead set on retiring early, these are things we want to take advantage of that can put you in a better position from a planning standpoint moving forward. So hopefully that concisely gave you an understanding. Again, you shouldn't just retire for these benefits. You should retire because you want to first and foremost, and then just to make sure you're taking advantage of the opportunity as the opportunity presents itself. So hopefully that helps. And then, we're thinking really long down path now at age 73, and this is really going to connect to a lot of the points I just made, but 73 or 75, which if you're retiring early, your RMD is probably going to be about 75, and that's going to lead to you, if you can do Roth conversions now and take withdrawals from your investments now, that's going to lead to you having lower RMDs in the future. And that's when the government forced you to take out that money, and so now you're going to be able to be more strategic about your planning. So I talked about how taking from a Roth, now we don't have to pay taxes, now we can have Social Security tax-free, we can legally divorce the IRS. So that's all part of that conversation of now having lesser RMDs can keep that in that standard deduction, or maybe keep it lower based on your situation. That can allow you to be in a better situation. So great thing to understand. And another consideration here, off of the Roth conversion conversation now is, health insurance, right? So we do have to be aware of where we're going to get health insurance until age 65, right? So there is options out there, ACA and things like that, but it can be costly. Now, maybe one spouse works until 65 and the other is retired. That could be a potential opportunity. Some people work part-time in retirement that gets health insurance coverage. That could be a possibility. We also see a lot of people enjoy working part-time in retirement just to give them peace of mind, but also to lessen the impact of withdrawals from their investments. So if they're making, $24,000 a year, it may not seem like much, but that's $24,000 less we have to take out from our investments, and that can be a huge advantage from a planning standpoint and make those assets last even longer, or just give you $24,000 extra to spend in your retirement years. So that's something to consider as well. But for health insurance, it can be very costly before 65. I mean, you can see $1,000 a month pretty routinely, and so if that's the case, where are we going to come up with the funds to cover that? But again, if you've been a diligent saver and you have the money and you want to retire, then go do it. Just make sure you have a plan of how you're going to do that. And we have specialists that we work with who help our clients before 65 make sure they shop the marketplace and get the right type of coverage they need to cover what they need, but also be a cost-effective way to do so. And then once they reach 65 and on, make sure you understand Medicare and how all the supplemental options out there, and make sure you get the right coverage for that too. And we also have a specialist here for our clients for that need as well. So health insurance is very important. You don't want to have any gaps. You don't want to miss anything there because obviously health and retirement can be very costly. You want to make sure you have the right plan in place to avoid any big problems there. So the key here to come into summary here is enjoy your retirement if you want to enjoy your retirement, right? I tell this story all the time, but we had a client who was 62 and they told us at 60 that they wanted to enjoy their 15 years of retirement. Well, at 62, they were 2 years in and they hadn't done the things that they wanted to do. And so we had a hard conversation with them of saying, what do you want this next 13 years to look like? Because do you want to get to the end of this 13 years and do you want to look back and say, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have done this. Or do you want to say, wow, that was a lot of fun and I really enjoyed my retirement. And so whatever that may be for you, maybe you want to retire earlier so you can have those golden years earlier to enjoy and be able to travel and have the right health to do the things. Maybe you want to spend more time with grandkids during that time if you have younger grandkids. Whatever it may be for you, the key is to have the right plan in place and run the analysis and run the numbers to make sure that it's going to be reasonable without running out of money first and foremost, but two, understanding the other sacrifices to your planning you may be making. Maybe that means less of a legacy to your loved ones. Maybe that means that your spouse could potentially be left with less money if you were to pass away and have to deal with things like the widow's penalty and other things like that. So again, just make sure you have a full comprehensive plan. Make sure you're working with a trusted team who can guide you here. and make sure you're on the right path. And we offer this often, but if anyone is looking for the type of planning we're talking about here, if you are looking at retiring early, this is what our firm does. We specialize in helping those in or near retirement, and we've got a lot of clients who retire early in that 55 to 65 range, and we help them navigate all these things that we've talked about on this video. And so if that's the type of planning you're looking for and you want to have a conversation with our team to see if we could be a good fit to work together, then you can schedule a 15-minute call on our link below in the description, and we'd certainly be glad to see how we can guide you there and see if we could be a good fit. I do want to be very clear that we don't work with everyone that schedules a time. We just certainly don't have the capacity. Our motto is we want to be the best, not the biggest. We're not trying to be the biggest firm in the country. Yes, we have clients all across the country, but we want to make sure we work with the people who we can serve best and the people we connect with the best. And so that's why we just are very careful about the people that we bring on. We don't want to sacrifice the level of client experience that we deliver to our clients. And so whatever we promise someone is what we're going to deliver on. And so we just have to make sure we don't overgrow is the idea. But if you'd like to reach out, if we can help you, we can talk further. If not, we'll at least make sure you're in the right direction. We don't leave anyone stranded who reaches out to us. We schedule that call with whoever reaches out to make sure that we can at least point them in the right direction if we're not the ones to serve them. So you'll have that opportunity. And again, I hope you're enjoying these videos, and we'll keep many more coming.